Welcome to the Soulfull Sound Podcast. This podcast is about celebrating the leaders, teachers, and coaches who guide fellow humans to connect, heal, and discover themselves so they can express their gifts into the world. I am Simone Niles, a coach, sound healer, vocalist, and author. Thank you for being here with me today. In this episode of the Soulfull Sound Podcast, I am joined by the wonderful Birgitta Ronn, who is a practicing clinical hypnotherapist based in southwest London. She's passionate about helping people transform their lives, seeing them arriving in pieces and leaving in peace. Having had hypnotherapy herself years ago, she was impressed by the transformative power of the mind and its potential to change unhelpful thought patterns and behavior. As no two individuals are the same, she will work collaboratively on enabling clients to identify what is causing their concern, establish a desired outcome, and set individual goals to work towards that specific outcome. Birgitta helps her clients by enabling them to access their own inner resources and capabilities so they will be better equipped to manage their emotional and mental state and respond to challenges, feeling empowered, calm, and in control. In this conversation, Birgitta shares her journey of healing the body through natural juicing to healing the mind through hypnotherapy. She delves into a deeper understanding of the mind, the importance of changing internal dialogue to ignite changes in behavior, and our need for stillness in this busy world. Join us for this exciting conversation. I am so excited, really pleased to have this beautiful woman in front of me. Birgitta Ronn is a solution-based focused hypnotherapist who is passionate about helping people transform their lives. And I met you, Birgitta, actually in a singing context because I was leading a choir years ago where you came along and added your beautiful harmonies to it, which was amazing.
Yeah, I still miss that.
Oh, it was such a good time. I really enjoyed it. The community coming together and singing was very much like a family, wasn't it? We all really enjoyed each other's space and company.
Yes.
I so loved singing with you all as well. So hooray!
Yes.
So what I'd love to know a little bit about, and of course I like to have my listeners know about you. What is your story? Tell me a little bit about what you do, because when I met you back then, you were very much into juicing and the whole health side and really optimizing physical health with healthy, fresh juices. And so tell me about that and what you're doing now.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. It's really exciting to be here, to see you again.
Yeah.
And I when I met you, I was very much a health coach, and I was really like the local juice woman instead of a milkman. So I was getting on my bike in the morning, delivering vegetable juices around the neighborhood. And it was a really interesting journey for me because juicing and healthy eating it was a big shift in my life when I discovered what sort of more of a plant-based diet could do for you, especially juicing. And I was so passionate about it that I sort of wondered what I could do to spread it. Yeah. And the only thing that came to mind was that I had to just go out and deliver it to give other people an opportunity to see for themselves what that could do to your immune system, your overall health. And so I started doing that and really blowing my own trumpet about it. I couldn't wait for everybody to get into the juicing and healthy eating. But as much as I loved it and as much as I enjoyed writing about it, I noticed that there was almost like a resistance in people to change. So the area where I live, there were a lot of people who had kids that were older. And so they were on this next phase in their lives. They were probably feeling a bit down, empty nest syndrome. Some of them were overweight. They were catching a lot of colds and flus. And yet their lifestyles were such that I could see really clearly how they could change their lives by changing how they ate, how they communicated with other people. There was a lot of negative dialogues going on. And So I used to get these people on a detox program. We used to go through several days on just juice, and I used to talk about positive thinking and positive interaction and how important that was even on a cellular level.
Yes,
it's because it affects our nervous system. So thinking that then they'd be all bounced up and energetic and ready to go, they went back to the same old ways with the same people, eating the same things, not exercising necessarily. And so that got me thinking about what it is in your mind that will choose to stay the same, even though you know on a more of a conscious level that changing something in your life would benefit you.
Yes.
So as life has it, when you need to hear something, it comes your way. I had lunch with a friend who was practicing, or who was training to be a hypnotherapist, and we talked about the brain, we talked about neuroplasticity, we talked about habit forming and trauma. I just thought, I got to do this.
That's awesome.
And initially I thought it might be something that I just did to help my health business. It will be like a little add-on so I could use that. But as it happened, now I'm in a practice where I see mainly people with anxiety and overwhelm and sense of insecurity and their place in the world. And so it's very much transformed what I do day to day, although I'm still a health nut, but that's not what I do as a profession anymore.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting for me, because it's very much aligned with the way I think and approach things, and I talk a lot about this in my work, is that inside-out approach.
Yeah.
And I think that it's so important, as you say, to have the healthy physicality and really feed our body and nourish ourselves with good and healthy and vibrant foods, and recognizing that there's the inner side and the inner work, because as you said, you could recognize, okay, well, they got some healthy stuff in them, felt some of the benefits, but now what? How do we either, maintain the new habit, or how do they actually improve their overall lives, not just the physical, I shouldn't say not just the physical, because of course that does filter out in other areas when you're physically feeling better. But that inside out approach, and I often talk about it as if it's a revolving door between the inner and outer worlds. You go in and you check in what's going on, and then you express something out into the world. Then from the outside, you put something healthy and feed yourself healthily. And then it affects how you think and how you move. And we know that for performance and optimum performance, they're both equally, important and valued.
Yes, because we are holistic beings, so it all matters. And I think most of us who deal with this, we start from one end of it, thinking that end is all there is. And as you work more and more with it, you realize that it's all important.
Yes,
it's all that. It's like you say, it's an inside job, and we got to have all the bases covered, really. So it's a journey. Before, if you'd asked me 4 years ago, I would have said, juice is the answer to everything.
Have juice, you'll be fine. You're depressed, juice. Yes. Unhappy or anxious, juice. Well, we do know how that can also impact. So we will definitely not minimalize it, because I do know the power of that, which I love. Do you know much about celery juice? I've been using celery juice for the last couple of months, and it's been amazing for me. Is that something for you that you've practiced yourself?
Well, to be honest with you, I read the medical medium, and so
juice,
and so I've always had celery in all my juices. That's always been one of the mainstays, but I didn't actually know, and so I knew it was incredibly beneficial, but I didn't know that how much it could help. So I'm actually giving it to my daughter.
That's awesome.
Who's got little skin issues, and it's amazing. I mean, within a couple of weeks, her skin cleared
up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, my kids, it was very hard for them to take that, to have the whole glass. They did not like the taste.
No, you have to make it a small
amount. Yeah, but I definitely every day I start my day with celery juice, which I think is fascinating. So I mean, we can go on and on about the juicing, which would be awesome. So yes, hypnosis, hypnotherapy. I think what's really interesting, I mean, coming across clients over the years, I'm not a trained hypnotherapist, but I do use hypnosis in my work, and I remember many people having this resistance around having hypnosis. It's almost like there are still a lot of myths out there about it. Like if it's stage hypnosis, they'll lose their mind and bark like a dog, or quack like a duck. And a lot of people have this this idea or thought that hypnotherapy or hypnosis is really about giving up your will and, letting someone else take control of your mind, which I know not to be the case. And I'd love to know your thoughts on that, those myths around, hypnotherapy, the resistance that some of your clients might come with about it, and how you kind of dispel those myths a bit.
Yeah. So I think that is changing, because I think hypnotherapy has become more mainstream, but there is still an element of suspicion. And there's an element also that I encounter a lot, that they will do something the wrong way. So they will be hypnotized the wrong way and something will happen, or so there's a lot of, it's just something mystical. So I think they do understand mainly that they will not stand on one leg and bark like a dog or something. But stage hypnosis has been really detrimental to the hypnotherapy element of it. But I think it's still something that they are not sure of, and so a lot of them are very nervous when they arrive, because they know that this is coming.
Right. It's this thing, whatever you're going to do.
Coming. It's up there. So I always make a big point of talking about the fact that they probably go in and out of hypnosis all the time, all throughout the day. We all do when we're on the bus and we just don't know where we are all of a sudden, and then we end up on the stop. And so it is a very natural thing, and it has nothing to do with giving up control or losing control. It's, you are constantly aware. The only thing that may happen is that you fall asleep, which is not a bad thing.
No. Sleep is awesome.
It's awesome. So what I'm finding is that once they've done it, and I tend to start with a very short one, so maybe 15 minutes, and then they realize it's really just laying down, relaxing, and then letting go. And I think it's that letting go that is for some people quite frightening. Just letting, and it tells you also how rarely people do let go. I mean, the only time they sort of probably pass out is when they go to bed, and maybe after a couple of glasses of wine. And so just that sense of, in the middle of the day, letting go of everything and just being in the here and now is quite a big thing for people. But once they get in contact with that sense of peace that comes with that, there's no going back. So, which is lovely. So I see this as a one thing is that it's my job, and I love what I do. But on the other hand, I see it as a sort of awakening of trying softer, trying less doing and more being, and in the being, that relaxation and letting go and just almost surrendering to the moment is so powerful. So I see that as a sort of a mission with everyone I meet, is that to really highlight that how important it is for ourselves. And also we have the world is such a problem-focused environment. We focus on what's not working, what's the problem. And if you ask someone what's not working in their lives, they can tell you for hours in detail. Working. Yeah. But if you ask them what they would like, or what good looks like, or what happy looks like for them, often there's not a narrative around that. They haven't really thought about it that much. All they know is they want to be happy or rich or healthy. Yeah. More than that, it's not much padding around that.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, not much padding. It's interesting because obviously, and just to pull out something else that you mentioned as well about the narrative, because we often tell ourselves stories about, always, I would say, and sometimes positive, but not so positive, and have these internal dialogues and patterns running through our minds about what life is, what life isn't. And to think about something positive and think about wanting to be healthy, we know how important it is to give detailed and specific information to that unconscious part of our mind so that it supports the intention. So what is healthy? What is rich? What is happy? Exactly. What are those things? And visualizing them and really, I suppose, speaking them into being by acknowledging specifically what that is for you is really important. And so the narrative part of it, which is really interesting, speak to me a little bit more about that, because obviously in hypnotherapy, you do somewhat create a script going into what someone may wish to achieve or how they can get out of, past behaviors and things like that. And when I say script, I don't mean that you create it literally, but you create it through words, the intention.
Yeah.
that you are then wanting them to then, implement positive changes in their lives. So I'm wanting to know a little bit more about the story side and the narrative and how you work in helping people to literally change their minds around things.
Okay. So that is a really lovely part of the session. So it's not all about being in hypnosis.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is fact-finding, is finding out what good looks like. And that comes with a lot of questions because, like I said, it's not necessarily easy for people to know what they want. So happy for them is something they haven't spent a lot of time thinking about. So we start to pull out things, perhaps past moments when they felt that they had done something well or they felt good, perhaps with certain people. What are some of those sparkling little moments in their lives where they really blossomed, and why was that, and who were they with, and what does it look like? And by doing that, I really get them going on their journaling. So that is the one thing I always tell them to do. And it's not just journaling about where they are right now and their feelings, but it's really about creating, like you said, that detail, because the mind is not, it's sophisticated in a way, but it needs to be simple, because otherwise, if it's too vague, if it's too abstract, we tend to go back into the thinking that we are used to thinking, which is often very negative. So if you make it easier for the mind to go into those new pathways that you are creating in session, then you basically write a script for yourself. Okay, right, I like this, and this is what I would like to feel, and what do I want a relationship to be like? Oh, I'd like these attributes in somebody, and this is what I would like to feel like if I'm loved. Wow. And so all of a sudden it becomes almost like making a film. Or a play, but it's their lives because they are their own director of their own show. So it's very creative. But to be creative, you really have to have that piece. So, which is why when I leave somebody, or before the next session, they get an audio tape and they listen to that every night with a relaxation and reprogramming and guidance and more positive affirmations, really, with lots of lovely visualizations and beautiful gardens and all that, to keep their nervous system low in terms of stress and getting used to accessing that new part of their mind where they can sit and think about what do I want, and for creative ideas to come forth and for wisdom to appear, which is impossible when you're stressed. There's no way, you have no access to that part of your brain. So your IQ reduces when you are stressed. It's you just simply can't recall the information and the wisdom and the knowledge that you do have, because you're hijacked by your fight flight brain. Response. So that bit is very fun for them, and they actually come back and say, "Oh, I've added a few more things to what I want my ideal partner to."
That's right. I'm gonna really be specific now. He needs to be tall. She needs to be short. Yeah, I love that. And I talk a lot about visualization in my work because it's a practice that I've used for a very long time. And when I speak about it, I talk very much about the neurological side, because I think with visualization, meditation, and a lot of these practices, there are a lot of people that see it as very woo-woo and spiritual, and I'm cool with that. But there is also the neurological and scientific parts of it, which I think is really important to acknowledge. And so as we talk about visualization or imagination, that part of our mind, the reticular activating system that comes alive and is very direction oriented, so that when we do visualize something for the future or visualize something that we wish to have in our lives right now, that part is activated. And it's
only us who can do it.
It's only us that can do it.
It's this magnificent tool that we could really use in the most amazing way, and yet we use it mainly to catastrophize. We use it, it's like a misuse of our imagination, and it's a shame. And I actually really think that this should be it's an important topic to teach kids, because they are naturally imaginative. But with the wrong feed, you can start looking at life as being quite a hostile place. And so if we could actually teach them the power of the mind, the power of or your own control over your mind, what you fill yourself up with is what will be.
And then you're able to make more informed choices,
Yes.
healthier choices.
Yes, absolutely.
And I love, the unconscious mind not knowing the difference between what you imagine and what is real. So why not imagine the greatest, most wonderful things for yourself? And so visualization is a huge part of my practice, and I use it a lot in my work as well. So I think that's awesome. I know a lot of people go to hypnotherapists for many different reasons. And I know you said you work a lot with people who might suffer from anxiety or stress and things like that. And I'm curious to know about habits, because we spoke a lot about the neural pathways and things that people do and not necessarily, as you said, in the juicing, for example, how come they're not necessarily sticking with this? So I'm curious to know about the habit side. Well, talk to me about it first, but what are some of the tips that you can give to others who want to change habits? People who think, look, I really want to stop this, but it feels really ingrained. How can I take charge and do something different?
Well, first of all, what happens when you have habits is that it's almost like taking the same route to work every day. It's so easy to do that route, so you can do it almost on autopilot. You don't have to think. So when you want to change something, it's a tough journey ahead, first of all, because the route is so ingrained that in order to start creating a new path, it's a fragile beginning. It's a small voice that will say, okay, I'm going to do something different. So the first thing we do is we talk about the story that we're telling ourselves, right? So the story that we tell ourselves all the time is, I'm not good enough. I can't go on that interview because I'm not clever, or I didn't go to university and therefore I can't have. So all of these stories that we bring with us in our backpack of experiences in life have created our identities. So the first thing is to start changing the narrative, changing what we tell ourselves. And that's a very practical thing to do. So as soon as we hear that voice in our mind, when perhaps we tell ourselves, oh, that was a really stupid thing to do, or typical me, I always do that, that we stop that we immediately decide that from this moment, because change is possible in any second of our lives. So that we tell ourselves, okay, right, in the past, I may have had that pattern, but now I'm changing. And then we do some nice, almost like we have a fallback, something that if you're in school and you need to have something that you can, a cheat sheet. Right, so that you have something very simple, again, something easy for the mind to catch on to. When you say that negative thing, that you swap it with a positive. So you'll say, I'm learning to be different day by day. I'm handling this in a much better way now. I'm learning to breathe when I'm anxious. So you fill your vocabulary with nice, kind things about yourself. Yeah,
you empty out some of the backpack and put it with something new in there.
Put it something that's often much, much lighter as well. So we don't, because we carry a lot of guilt and shame and all of this stuff that we just bring with us. And all of our habits are really formed with the lens of whatever we have in that backpack. So by getting rid of that, by emptying that backpack and starting to fill it with more positive and kinder thoughts about ourselves, kinder words about ourselves. We are really the worst. We wouldn't even speak to enemies the way we talk to ourselves, the way we push ourselves down, the way we give ourselves a hard time when we do something wrong, if we say the wrong thing. It's quite incredible. So yes, so that's changing the dialogue is a really important part of changing a habit. And then we also have to recognize that habits have been formed over many, many years. They have had lots of time to be ingrained, and we have to give ourselves the patience and the kindness to give ourselves time to reprogram, to shift that belief. So that's another thing, we often get very impatient when we say we're going to form a new habit. So, we're going to start going to the gym all of a sudden. And then we're really motivated by this because we're going to do it. And then we last maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then we don't feel like going anymore. And then we don't. And so one of the things is that I say to my clients now is that if you don't feel like something, there is that's not always the voice to listen to. So there's something about delayed gratification, knowing that something that makes us feel good, like going to the gym or eating healthier, that will eventually help the weight loss or the healthy immune system or the healthy liver for those who drink or the healthy lungs for those who smoke. that there is not always, that we can't always listen to what it is that we feel like doing.
Yeah.
Because if we listen to what we feel like doing, we wouldn't change anything, right? Because that's how we operate. We don't like change. Change is interpreted as a threat in our mind. So when we change habits, you're going to get some resistance. And to be prepared for that, to really be prepared for your mind saying, actually, I really much rather sit here and watch a film and just chill out and be with my kids and have something cozy to eat. And so that is to be expected, that you will have some throwback and to do it anyway.
Yeah, and I want to unpack something that you said a little bit, because you spoke about changing the dialogue and, you hearing these negative self-talk and internal dialogue and making positive changes. So just going a step before that, obviously there needs to be some self-awareness and noticing first and foremost of that dialogue. How do you get people who are so stressed and anxious and all the things that are going on in their lives, because you spoke about that letting go and that surrender and that peace and simplifying, how do we actually get that very first, piece in place before they actually start changing it, but to actually notice that internal dialogue?
Yeah. So that one of the things that because it's so good with hypnotherapy is that you do have that sense of relaxation, that sense of breathing. I mean, often when people come in, they're so anxious that we have to take the first 10 minutes of just doing breathing exercises simply because there is no way that there's going to be any good outcome if they just carry on in that fight-flight mode. So there may be something that happened in the day and they simply can't connect with you, or they can't connect with themselves. So by simply breathing, calming down, and being more present in the here and now, just sitting there doing breathing exercise. I do it with them so that they can just really emulate me. And we tend to do the in-breath and out-breath and the out-breath is much longer to just calm the central nervous system. So that is often the first thing that happens, just so that they land and can get aware of even what's going on in their lives, because we can't change anything when we don't even know. Like you say, we don't even know what it is that's not working. What we notice is that we start to have, a lot of people have panic attacks, or they just can't speak in public, or there's all kinds of things that people have that stops their lives, that reduces their lives. So that's often why they come, because it's gone that far that there's something in their lives that's not working anymore. And that has become clear to them. Perhaps they are socially anxious, so they can't go to events, and they need to do that for their jobs. And all of a sudden that brings them to me so they can stop that. So it's... I always say it's you start by doing nothing. You start by just...
And using the breath is so powerful.
It's so powerful. Yeah. It's so powerful. And that is another thing that we have forgotten to do.
Breathe intentionally and consciously.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting because a lot of the things that I do, I use personally, but also I work with clients with in that noticing or awareness building, alongside breathing, setting the intention. So again, the mind wakes up to, today I'm going to notice all of those all the negative dialogue that comes through my mind, so I'm able to shift it, so that you're just setting the intention to notice something, and that flag goes up. It really does. It's like when we say, you know what, I want to wake up at 7 a.m. tomorrow, and somehow we just wake up before the alarm because we've set those self-hypnotic suggestions. And so the breathing to get into a calm state, the setting the intention and giving those self-hypnotic suggestions of noticing and being aware of in the moment helps to just bring that awareness, so that people then can go, oh, I just realized that's the thing that I said I always do. And it's such a rewarding experience when you notice things for the first time and you think, oh, it's so empowering, because it then gives you a place to work from, as you said. And now I can actually change something because I'm noticing that it's there in the first place.
Yes, that's right. And one of the things that I tell, so the bit that I practice, which is called solution-focused hypnotherapy. I mean, most hypnotherapy is solution-focused. Most therapy is solution-focused. But in particular, what we tend to do is to always notice what's worked.
Yes.
And when you notice what works, you realize how little you notice what works, because you're so busy noticing what doesn't work. So, when they come back for the next session, I want to know what has worked. And so in the beginning, they will do it because they know I will ask for it. So they will almost do it as a school teacher. You know,
right.
I have to hand this into Birgitta. But then what happens is they start to realize that by shifting that, by actually starting to notice, even if it's something small, like getting a perfect parking spot when you are late, and otherwise it would have been a real disaster. Someone smiling at you, someone just sending you a text when you have a moment of feeling low. All of those little things are all those stuff that we start to notice.
Yes.
Because otherwise we tend to say, oh, yeah. But the big problem is, and then we launch into it again. So that is one of the things that we do. And I don't want to hear about their diary entries. You know, I want to know what happened that worked, that made them feel something. So that resonated with them. Yeah. So if they went out and met some friends, what was it about that was lovely? Was it, well, I felt I belonged, or I felt included, or I felt loved? You know, all of those things. When we start to notice those things in our lives, then it takes on a totally different hue.
Yeah, because then you're then asking, what are some other things that you can add into your life that allows that sense of belonging or that feeling loved, and all the things that those true values that matter to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it is very, and it, like we talked about before, it starts with little steps. It starts with steps, and a little step may feel like a little step, but lots of little steps
create something.
It's yes, exactly. So that is really, you know, there's no bold, big movements here. There's no quick fixes. There are lots of good little steps that leads you.
We don't notice until we're there, but it's not the one slice of chocolate cake that made you overweight.
It's the
repetitive slices of chocolate cake or whatever you fancy. So it's similarly, it's not the one piece that you don't eat that's going to all of a sudden you're back to healthy weight. I completely get that. And it's such an important piece to mention, because I think, yes, instant gratification is certainly very much the way a lot of people live right now, especially with the pace at which everything is moving. Social media, the world is at a pace in which it's like, I can get it now because this is what I'm seeing in front of me all the time. So that patience piece is really important. Oh, I love all of this. Birgitta, what is your definition of healing?
Well, so I'm somebody who needs a lot of solitude. So for me, there is nothing more healing than to retreat into a space, and that is my home. So my home is my healing sanctuary. And if I feel like the world is too much or something has happened, and we all go through stuff, that's where I go. I go home. I put on Bill Evans. And then the world is good. And I need to do that. I need to recharge. I need to, that's just how I am. And I know that works for me. You know, we all have to find our own self-soothing methods. And that is how I heal. And another thing that I find, and that this is another thing I talk to my clients about, because often we're looking for things out there and we're looking to be fulfilled out there. And once that is fulfilling us, then we're fine. And of course, it's not like that. We talked about it as an inside job, but that inside job comes with so much love for ourselves, as in really listening to ourselves of what is it that I need right now?
Yes.
What is it that I need? And not only then hearing that, but actually acting on it. So yes, you may be expected to be somewhere or do something, but sometimes the kindest thing to do is to actually really listen and take action on that voice. Because when you do, that's when you build that self-worth. Because if you hear it and don't listen, then all that happens is that you can see that reflected in your life, that you are not being heard or seen, or your view is not taken into consideration and it's not important. And that's when we start to feel out of control. We feel like whatever we do, no one pays attention, whatever. It's so I think that self-love and self-care is so important. And I have noticed that in my times of stress, in relationship troubles, or even, moving country. I'm Swedish. I lived in the States for many years, and coming to Britain. You know, all of that represented big changes for me. And But that sense of listening to what I need and to have that space, personal space, that alone space, is a way for me to regroup. And come back fighting.
So what's interesting, and I've asked the question around healing for most of my guests so far, and what I'm understanding somewhat in what you've shared is that your definition is around going within, going home, accessing that part of you that is at one and is at peace, and just reconnecting with self,
because it's the disconnection. This is what it is. It's the disconnection from self. I think.
And then what's precious about that for me is that my definition of healing is really going back to that natural state of harmony and bliss that exists within each of us, as opposed to trying to fix something or change something or do something. It's recognizing that you are already whole. You are already you are already at that state of vibration, healed, if you can tap into it. And we know that life's curveballs are thrown at us, yes, and this is what sometimes takes us out of harmony. And so you going back to self and reconnecting with self and going into that quiet time, and then equally creating the external environment to support that, whether that's listening to your favorite music or really just retreating and going off into the woods or nature, which I like to do. So I think it's great because I'm hearing over the time of asking about healing with most people that I've spoken to recently, that it's pretty much the same. We all have our ways of expressing it, but it fundamentally is that inner knowing of us being perfect as we are. But let's tap back into that, because we sometimes just come away from that resonance.
We do. And I think we doubt it as well. We don't think it's good. The sadness is that when we feel, because we feel whole when we are in that moment, we feel whole and we feel good enough. But going out into the world, we feel that's not good enough, or it's not enough. There's something else that we need. So it's listening to that and actually, really connecting with it and feeling like it is good. I am good enough. I'm good enough just the way I am, without doing a single thing, just by being.
Yes.
So,
I love that. I love that. And you've been traveling a lot, as you said. I do know that you're Swedish, but I didn't know that you lived in America.
Yes.
So you've traveled around, similar to me in that I've been in the UK for 23 years pretty soon, and originally born in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Barbados, but I lived in the States for my formative years. So I've moved around a lot. And it, I know there is something, it's not always easy, but I think what I've taken away from that, which for me, I see and witness in others, is that adaptability to change, to different environments, different circumstances, which I think has served me quite well in life. So tell me a little bit about your move and what brought you to the UK, what got you moving around from Sweden to the States and now here.
Well, I traveled a lot when I was younger, and I met some Americans.
Okay.
In Mykonos, in Greece, on a Greek island, met a bunch of Americans, and they invited us over, and I came to California and saw just the sun, and I'm from Sweden, it's cold, right? So I just wanted warm. And I moved there, and it was at the time, it was in the 80s, and it was at the time where everything was about growth and meditation and spirituality and all of that. And I just lapped it up. I loved it. I had wonderful friends. We went to different places every night, listened to different speakers. I read loads. All of these lovely books, which are called self-help. I hate that word, but it's, it's
self-development
side. Yes. And so it made a huge impact on me because it felt so right. And it humbled me, I think. I think it humbled me coming from Sweden. When everywhere you have grown up, you're sort of sure of the world, you're sure of you, you're sure of your place in society. And so by changing and going somewhere else, I think it made me more humble, I think. It made me more humble. I realized that there were other situations, other people's lives. There was different ways of doing things, right? Yeah. So that really worked. And then I fell in love and moved to the UK. And as lovely as it was to be in love, coming to the UK, this was very early 90s, having had all that openness and growth and people interested in the growth and openness, end up in Twickenham, funnily enough. And I thought I had died and gone to hell. It really was that bad. It felt like parts of me just shut down. It was really traumatic for me. There was no one interested in any sort of meaningful dialogue.
Right.
There was nothing like that. So I had to work really hard to find my tribe. Which we all have to, right?
Yeah.
There was some years there that I really felt that I felt lonely and I felt other, just foreign.
Yeah.
So that was those were tough years actually, but now it's completely changed. I mean, everything is opened up here. There's a much more of an open dialogue about.
And how did you overcome that? Because you didn't wait for the change to happen.
No, I didn't.
Around you. So what are the things that you did to overcome that other
I think
feeling?
that was to never give up trying to find people with whom you connect. So that was for me like a lifeline, to find people that you connected with on a level that had nothing to do with what they did and what I did. It was just human to human.
Yeah.
So for me, that's still to this day, that is what I need. That meaningfulness is actually more central, I think, now. I think that we have so much interaction and we have so many things happening in our lives that I really long for those conversations. And I think this is lovely, right?
Yes.
So it's all these conversations that actually mean something that has depth to it and that makes you think and learn and share and be vulnerable and be honest and all of that, which I think is wonderful. I
absolutely agree. This is what I love about these conversations that we have. And for me, the whole brand of Soulfull Sound is that you are coming from that place of authenticity and depth, and the surface stuff is okay to a point because it's sometimes the way in. But I have to admit, I have very little patience with those conversations that stay on the surface. And anyone that knows me will say that I just go straight in. I don't waste time. I'm like, okay, now we know how the weather is, and we know that you've got kids and I've got kids. I want to know
the real stuff.
Yeah, I want to know, what is being a mother like for you? What is, I just like you, that connection and going deeper is so important, because I think if we stay on the surface for too long, there's so much that we miss.
Yeah.
And that deep connection of souls and energy and people coming together, if we're not in a place where we can find that connection, it's really important to have it. And like you, when I first moved here, it was very much of a culture shock. The weather was different. I came from warm, not hot and not cold. And, it was very different. But I'm very, very fortunate, and I'm so grateful to have a family, my brothers, my mother, my father, my partner, who are all about the depth and the conversations like this. And so I never really yearned so much for it outside, because I always had something that allowed that out, had that outlet. However, all of my friends and the people that are in my circle of influence and around me know me well enough, because this is the energy that I put out there. We're going to go the mile. I'm not going to just, start at the gate. We're going to go the mile. So if you're coming into my space, expect it. And I think when you give out that energy and you give out that frequency, it's met.
Yeah.
So I think for someone like you, who you were in that frequency and you were like ready and raring, but it wasn't being fed back to you at the time, partly because it's what you were your frequency and the resonance was perfectly aligned with a different environment, is, I think for me, the thing that I would encourage one to do in a situation like that is to, as you did, stay in that frequency. Don't adapt and change to suit what's going on the outside. Recognize that the lighter you and the brighter you shine your light, then you're going to attract the people who are there to have those conversations with.
Yes.
And often be the inspiration for others who want to, but don't always.
Yeah. And I find that actually with my clinic now, that a lot of people come there because they don't talk to people. They don't share or connect on that level.
Yeah. And
to the point where they go and speak to a therapist because they need to connect. We all have that need to connect, really. Yeah. And I think I feel really fortunate that I can sit there and actually hear them and really be present with what's going on in their lives, and give them that sense of time and sense of really listening to what is going on. Because I think it's changing, but I still think that not going very deep is still sort of a little bit of a cultural. It's quite a bit of a what do you call it? It's encouraged not to share too much. It's almost seen as a bit pathetic if you give too much away. So I think it is changing, and I think you, like you say, you've got to keep doing you. Got to keep doing you in all situations. Sometimes it will go well. Other times you'll just have to say, okay, that was not my tribe, right? But you've got to keep at it.
Yeah, and I think this is what I say often, even in the performance world. When I work with songwriters and artists who are out there performing and doing their thing, I was like, you absolutely want to do you. You absolutely want to bring your creative spirit into the work, because not only will you be authentic and start to attract the people that are there to come and pay and listen to you in concert, but you're also going to weed out the ones who aren't. And that is exactly what you want to do. Yeah. I'm not saying that the music industry is supportive of that, because I know that there are some barriers and things that people have to go through when they're signed to a label. But the people that I work with, it's all about that authenticity and what is it that you are here to express and bring to the world. So it goes across all fields and all people, so that we're not bending and shaping ourselves to the mold outside of us, but instead breaking that out and recognizing there need not be this mold, that we are able to spread ourselves as wide and far as we like, in the way that we like, because as energy beings, we're all connected anyway.
We're all connected anyway. And to shine your light. I mean, this is not the time to play small anyway. No. So I say that, do your whatever it is that makes you, and take it out and do it.
Yes.
So
I love that. It's not an easy feat, but
it's not easy.
We're working
One
towards
step
it.
at a time.
For ourselves and for others, for sure. So, what are your sources of inspiration? What really inspires you right now?
Well, I read a lot. So I read a lot of development books so Eckhart Tolle. I love Oprah. I love. I guess a lot of these thinkers are Americans, because I think the stage has been set more there. It's more, but I love reading about ways of thinking and new thinking and old thinking, and so I read very little fiction.
Yes.
And I sometimes think I should, just take a break from it, but I'm drawn back to it. What else inspires me? My children. That sounds really, so my children really inspires me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because it's, you have that, like you were saying, that in your family, you had that depth. And that's what, when you create that in your family, that is like a lovely thing to always, they know, and once you've had it, it's very difficult not to have it.
Yes.
So they inspire me. They inspire me with the fact that they already know that that's important. They don't really know why, but they just know that some people they click with and others they don't, and they don't understand why, but they do know that they don't want to be around where there isn't any connection. So I know that they can sense that, and I think that's lovely.
That is lovely. I mean, literally this morning in the kitchen, I had a conversation with my 15-year-old son, and I was just saying to him how proud I am that he takes responsibility for his energy and takes responsibility for his environment without necessarily understanding why either. I said, it's not something that I told him, do this, don't do this. It's just something that was innate to him. So he's an aspiring footballer. And in his experience, he's had people around him who are, oh yeah, you know what, you'll never make it. Everyone wants to be a footballer and their neighbor. You'll never make it. It's just only the select few do. And he consciously took himself out of situations where people would say that to him, because as far as he's concerned, whether he becomes a footballer or not, at the end of the day, is secondary to what the point I'm making, which is you're not going to tell me that I can't do something.
Yeah.
Only I can say that. And I am not saying that to myself.
Yeah.
So I refuse to listen to it from you. Yeah. So I will take myself out of this environment that is not serving me. And I will stay around the people who are doing the things that I want to do, improve on, be better at, etc. And I think that's phenomenal when we can see these things reflected in our kids.
That's fantastic. Because not everybody has the VIP pass to our insights.
No.
We have to mind that. We have to mind our dreams. Our dreams are fertile soil, and not everybody can just go in there and start digging around. We have to have that resilience to walk away and know that, no, I'm not sharing this. I'm not letting you influence me. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. It's lovely.
Brilliant.
Lovely being a mother, isn't it?
Yes, it is lovely.
It is lovely.
Yeah.
And so you spoke about self-care before, the things that you do in terms of retreating and going in and things like that. So what are some of the self-care tips that you would recommend? I mean, maybe for your clients or people in general. I know we all have our unique way of doing this. There's no cookie cutter approach. But what are some of the things that you do that you think, yeah, that would be a really good thing to implement?
I think for anybody is to do some sort of either mindfulness or meditation practice. It's that thing of getting still. For some, it's a step too far. They might listen to my recording every night, and for them that is as much woo as they want. Yes. But I would say that makes a huge difference. I mean, a huge difference. And in that, there is a discipline of self-care. So self-care is not just what I feel like doing at any moment. It's knowing that this does me well, this does me good, and doing it even though some days you don't feel like it. So I think that is something to remember, is that it's day by day, step by step, you do something that heals you, that makes you feel good. So I do a lot of journaling, and so that and I do the gratefulness thing, what I'm grateful for.
Yeah, gratitude's so important,
yes, it's very important. And I do a lot of visualizations in terms of where I'm ending up.
Yes.
Right. So in my world, I will not stay in Sheen.
Yes. I'm moving out of Sheen, people. I love it.
So that is an ongoing thing. You do it. I think you do it I will do it for the rest of my life.
I think what's really special about what you've just said is that sometimes we need to focus on the needs, not the wants. And self-care tends to be, okay, I'm going to go get myself a massage because I love it, or I'm just going to go and chill in the spa. And I think those things are important too, if that's what you want. But sometimes what is really needed to look after yourself, that really deep self-care, isn't something that you want to do. But you know that in doing things that are not necessarily what you want, but are going to benefit you, as we say, whether it's tomorrow or in the long run or whatever, those one step at a time approach, that is so fundamental and so important. And I think that piece goes unnoticed and missed quite a lot. So I think it's great that you've highlighted that it's not just about the things that feel good and feel like I want to do this, that's self-care. Self-care goes deeper than that, especially the type of work we do where we do see clients one-on-one. We do see people coming in with a lot of stress, anxiety, and all the other things that life brings. It's really important for us to ground ourselves and have a practice where we are able to, release those things. And some of those practices is not something that I would say, oh, I really love doing this particular thing every day, but we do them knowing that they're going to serve us and they're going to then, and obviously reflect and serve our clients.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important distinction to make, that self-care isn't always what you want, but what you need.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And I think that in a way that is the theme, is the pampering.
Yes.
Which is lovely, of course. Who doesn't like a pampering spa day, right?
Yes, we deserve that too, of course.
But it's I think it can go a lot deeper than that. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's amazing. What sound do you love?
Well, I mean, as you know, I love singing.
You have such a beautiful voice.
But I am a huge jazz lover, to the point that I actually need it. I need it. It sort of brings everything back to what do you call it? Well, back to zero. You reset.
It, right?
Exactly. It's a reset for me. So Bill Evans is a current favorite. I love that. Oscar Peterson. All of those lovely, wonderful, improvised sounds are amazing for me. So that is my sound, really.
Jazz,
and my kids sometimes say, "Oh my God, not more Bill Evans."
Bill Evans, if you're listening out there, you have a super
fan. He
doesn't.
He's not anymore. He's not with us, but
he's somewhere in the ether listening.
But But I know that for them, because it's a gentle healing. It's just, and they can feel that mummy's good, and in that, I
have a really warmth because when you talk about jazz, the association for me is my youth, because I grew up with my dad's jazz records and calypso and jazz.
Oh, lovely!
And I mean, mean, this is Billie Holiday on my wall.
Yes.
I love jazz. And while I'm not a jazz singer, when I did my master's years ago, I worked with a wonderful jazz teacher who taught me so much. And I did that because I wanted to stretch myself as a vocalist. And I'm not a jazz singer, but I love jazz. Tell me something. Teach me how to scat. It was so much fun. But jazz is just, that association is just so beautiful for me. Yeah. When I hear it, I just think, the times of being on my dad's lap at 6 years old and listening to music with him. Such a beautiful experience. So the sound of jazz. Oh, yes, we love it. Life, the jazz is the underlying theme right now.
That's the soundtrack to
I need to put some jazz in the background, I think. Oh, I am so honored that you have come and spent some time with me today. Honestly, Birgitta, it's such a joy to see you again. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
And to also witness the journey that you have, been on from the juicing into hypnotherapy and just your wanting to really transform lives. Yeah. And I really want to commend you on that because I think it's so important, the work you're doing, and we need more people like you doing the things that you're doing. So I salute you and I really celebrate all that you are and the journey that you're on.
Simone. Thank you for having me. It's been amazing. Yeah.
My absolute pleasure. Yeah. I do have just letting everyone know, if you want to know more about Birgitta and her work, you can check her out, find her on her website at birgittaronn.com, and you can also connect with her on Instagram at Birgitta Hypnotherapy. So find her where you need to. I will also have the links as always with this podcast. And of course, I do have a final question for you. I want to know, what is your soulful sound to the world? A self-prayer or desire that you wish upon the world?
Oh, can I be really sort of, I really, for me, that we listen and are present with our children. Can that be I am so really feel so strongly about the fact that we listen to and that we are there with, not just physically, but that we are with in the here and now with them. If we could do that with every child, because as a mother, you're a mother to everyone, right? Like you're not just a mother to your own kids, you're a mother to the world. And so I think that is the one thing that I noticed that we're missing. We're not being heard or valued.
Listen and be present.
Yeah, be present with your children.
Yeah. And I would take it to the step of also being present with your inner child.
Yeah, absolutely. That is part, yes.
I think that's so beautiful.
Yes, it is. And the thing is, when you think about your inner child, I always see my daughter. And so I know that there's that link, the two. So it's, definitely.
That is beautiful. Yeah. Well, thank you again for your time, your presence, your love, and I can't wait to see what's next on your journey. I'll have to invite you back in a year and we'll hear about the next stage and the steps that you've taken. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to share it with your friends and remember to subscribe. From my heart to yours, sending you love, healing, and sound wherever you are.